Manny Alicandro is in the heart of the beast in downtown Manhattan, and he joins us from his underground command center bunker. Manny, what's happening, buddy? How are you today?
How you doing? I'm great. I'm great. I'm surviving like we all are.
I see that. Well, you look good, that's for sure. I know a few weeks back you weren't doing so good, so you look like you recovered well.
Thanks. Yeah, I went to CPAC at the end of February, early March, and I felt really sick when I got back, and I had flu-like symptoms. I was pretty achy, and the thing that really got me was I had a temperature. I had a temperature of about 101 for a couple of days. And I figured, look, I really got to be careful with this thing. Ultimately, went to the doctor, and they refused to test me. So, I'm not happy with what they did was they left it up to me to make a determination that I shouldn't be out in public, and that's not a good position for a person to put themselves in. But nonetheless, thank God, I think I got through it. I don't feel too badly, but I'm worried about the fact that I couldn't get tested, and I still could be a carrier and all that nonsense. So, that's why I think we're in a situation we're in with this lockdown. Honestly, it's unfortunate, but we just didn't test people out of the gate, and I think that needed to be done. I know a lot of people don't want to hear that, but it's the truth. If you look at countries that did this in a different way, even like I saw a report from this on CNBC from a doctor in Iceland. The way Iceland handled it, at different countries, Europe and Scandinavia, they tested up front, so they kind of were able to separate, John, the people who were infected from the people who didn't have it. So they had a much more limited lockdown. I think out of an abundance of caution, we were worried that everybody was going to get it. The curve wasn't going to flatten, and that's when we shut things down because we didn't know who had it from those who didn't have it.
No, Manny, I know. I give the governor credit. He's been doing, I think, a pretty good job, and I give the president a lot of credit because he's taking a beating daily. I mean, literally taking a pounding every single day, and he still gets out there trying to talk to people. I think he could shorten the conferences a little bit, but I guess these are drastic measures for drastic times, my friend.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Look, there's a lot of finger pointing we could do starting from the top, down, sideways, whatever. People aren't taking social distancing seriously. I mean, we all have some accountability, how we live our lives. A lot of people weren't in great shape and weren't, really healthy. And that's unfortunate. And something like this came about and exposed our vulnerabilities, both in our healthcare system, our economy, and everything going on in the world right now. But nonetheless, I think to get out of it is just rapid, frequent testing. So if I have a company and I have employees, we should test those employees. We should get tests and maybe test them frequently because someone could not have it and then have it or have it get over it and then get reinfected. Unfortunately, I think we need to take people's temperatures. So I'm a lawyer, as you all know, and I'm somebody who values and cherishes our civil liberties more than anybody else. But I'm willing to give some of those up. It's like, when I go on a plane, I don't want to take off my shoes. I like wearing cool boots and stuff. I don't want to take them off, but I have to. I have to empty my pockets. I have to open up my laptop. And I was in Mexico, and I had to go through earlier this year. I had to go through an extra security measure. They made me open up my laptop. They swabbed my computer. I had to turn it on. But you know what? I felt safe, and I felt that it was done in an abundance of caution as a measure to make me and those that saw me go through that feel safe before we boarded the plane. So I think right now people are freaking out. Right? It's kind of like when you walk out. I go out every day to buy groceries. I put a mask on. I put gloves on. Right? I wrap my phone in cellophane. I mean, it's insane kind of what I do. If I see people walking towards me, it's kind of like a Western movie. Like I stop, they stop, and I'm not going to draw a gun because I don't have a draw a gun. But we kind of like both do a little dance. Like I move to the left, they move to the right, or vice versa. Right? That's kind of nuts to do that. I won't get into an elevator with people. I mean, I can't live my life. We can't live our lives like that. But nonetheless, the only way for me and everybody else to feel comfortable is I know someone doesn't have corona and is infected with corona. How we do that, is testing. How we identify those who were tested and with a vaccine down the road, whatever, that's going to get into a difficult conversation. But nonetheless, when I went to MIT and I applied to MIT, I got in. I had to give them my measles, mumps, and rubella vaccination, John. I'm 51 years old. I had to give them vaccination that I got when I was like a couple of months old. My mother had to go to like the safety deposit in the bank box and get out my old birth records, and then I had to get a booster shot. So we do have to give up rights in terms of when we apply to schools, do certain applications, and we do have some proof of immunization. So, again, I wouldn't be opposed to having something even on my iPhone that says, yeah, I got vaccinated for Corona. Let me into the Super Bowl. Let me into the Giants game. I don't have a problem with that. And I understand people do, but the trade-off is stuff stays locked down, stuff stays shut down, and the economy hemorrhages, and people can't go back to work. Or we create some identifiable measures where people can go back to work with testing, proof of testing, negative results, taking people's temperatures, and ultimately a vaccination.
Yeah, one of the viewers watching, Dabby Carreras, Dabby, he says that testing is good so we can quarantine the sick, but not abuse the healthy. So, like, you're an attorney, right? And take a look at the legal side of this, from, civil rights and stuff. We don't have to carry around a card with us that said I got the flu shot this year. So if the government if we have to put something on our phone to show that we have the right to go out of our house, doesn't that start to really infringe on our civil liberties?
I mean, it might, but me having to go through a metal detector, or right now, I remember when there were like terrorism threats in the subway. I want to draw an analogy. Police officers set up tables, and you went on a subway, and it randomly searched you. They could check your bag, a backpack, a woman who has a purse, whatever. Now, technically, they're infringing upon my Fourth Amendment right of search and seizure, but nonetheless, I'm ceding that right because there's a public policy benefit. So, at the end of the day, if I have a card, right, let's walk it through. I get vaccinated for Corona. Great. I have a card that says I'm vaccinated for Corona. I put some kind of app on my phone. It's authenticated. It's immutable on the blockchain. I show that app. What am I giving up? I mean, what's at the end of the day, kind of what rights are being violated in me showing that? Isn't it for public safety and an abundance of caution to make sure people don't get sick? So what's the alternative? I don't do that. I'm struggling with how my rights are violated. And what am I giving up? I'm not telling you anything personal about me. I'm giving you my personal information. It's just we're in a pandemic, and a lot of rules that usually apply don't apply. It's almost like when there's an act of war, right? There's all these different standards that kick in, and I could use the analogy of 9/11. We gave up a ton of rights when we created the Department of Homeland Security. 100%.
Yeah,
it changed everything. The Patriot Act totally gave up.
Manny, but look how, it was the Patriot Act that caused the FISA courts, right? Some parts of the Patriot Act and how they can surveil U.S. citizens. So look how far that degraded that, our own government, the highest levels, FBI and stuff, were going in and lying to the FISA court, basically at this point with no penalty. So what's next? If we got to start showing a card for our vaccinations, what's next? You know what I mean?
No, I hear you.
I never got a flu shot. I got to tell you, I never got a flu shot. 1 year, in 2009, I was running for office, and I knew I was going to be out there talking to a lot of people, shaking a lot of hands. I got the flu shot that year because people kept telling me, do it, do it, do it, do it. And I can tell you that I had 2 of the worst days of my life of actual sickness after getting the flu shot. So I don't like getting vaccinated. If I need it, I need it. But, I know we got to come up with some mitigation measures. I just don't like them piling on more elimination of, what I deem to be, our certain inalienable rights, like the government stay out of my phone.
I don't disagree, but what honestly, like we're there already. So let me break it to you. We're there already.
Yeah, that's
We're in
true.
a situation where we don't have rights. We're being surveilled. I mean, when they, the news media, the government says Dr. Birx, when she does the press conference with Trump, with the task force, and she says, we know how people are effectively social distancing or not. How do they know that? They know that because you have a tracking device in your phone. And the telecom companies, Verizon, whomever, AT&T, they're providing Google, Facebook, whoever has all your information is giving it to the government. How else would they know? So we're in that world already, and it's messed up, and I don't agree with it. I don't like it, and I don't clearly like the situation with the FISA court. But that was an abuse. You could always have an abuse. I mean, you could have someone work at a government agency and steal someone's personal information. You could have someone at Google do that, right? So, we can't get into like a big argument about levels of trust. What we need is a system that works. We need to create a system that people can't take advantage of and that people can't abuse my personally identifiable information, particularly my health records. I mean, clearly you'd have to do some type of waivers and stuff with HIPAA because the HIPAA laws control
That's
medical
what I'm
records.
talking about.
Right, but I could cede HIPAA the way, if I have a client, an attorney-client relationship, the client could waive that relationship. I could give you whatever medical records I want to about me. The question is, my doctor can't. But I'm still struggling with how this is a violation of rights. Let's say you want to know what your cholesterol is, right? You got to get tested. How are you leaving it to people to determine if they have corona or not had it? It's silly and stupid. And it's offensive to me that we have to go to these draconian measures of shutting everything down and then determining what's essential or not. I don't think a liquor store is essential. Just let me put it out there, okay?
You don't.
Liquor stores, I don't have a problem with people drinking alcohol.
Well, I'd be in some dire straits right now if they shut down the liquor stores, Manny. I mean, Liquid Lunch would be out of business. We'd be just
you
lunch,
could buy it at Costco. You could buy. I'm talking about the way. I'm just using an example. Some states gun stores are open. Some states they're not. Some states determine liquor stores are essential, but marijuana dispensaries are not. My point is, I think it's fine if liquor stores are open. At the end of the day, I don't care. I'm using it as an example. That is very arbitrary. So you get into a federalism argument of kind of what should be open or not with this reopening plan from Trump. He defers Trump in that plan to the states. And the states, if you look at Michigan, you can't buy like fertilizer or like plant seed. It's kind of weird and arbitrary what some states are doing as opposed to others. So that's my problem is this needed to be done uniformly. For this to be effective, the federal government should have had criteria with states that it was done uniformly. It wasn't. That's led to a lot of concern because if one state does something and another state doesn't, I was watching an interview with Governor Sununu in New Hampshire yesterday with Martha McCallum on Fox, and what he said was great. They were talking about beaches. So the New Hampshire beach is going to be open. And his question was, look, I can't make that decision as the governor of New Hampshire unilaterally without talking to the governor of Maine and the governor of Massachusetts. Because let's say the beaches in Massachusetts are closed. The beaches in Maine are closed. But the beaches in New Hampshire are open. Guess what happens? You have the free rider problem. Everybody's going to go to New Hampshire. So there needs to be coordination, and I want to see more coordination amongst the states. Less fighting about ventilators and stuff. I want to see a ton of PPE. I want to see a ton of ventilators. I want to see a ton of tests done over and over again. I want people to get tested so frequently, so easily. It's like, someone buys a test at a CVS or something. You go there, you buy a test. You spit in a cup or something, and you mail it away. You get it back, or you give it to someone. You get the results, in a day or two. That's what I want to see.
They're saying that they have home, that very soon they're going to have home testing kits. If that's the case, there's 350 million people in America. The government should buy 700 million of them and send 2 to everyone. Test now, test yourself again in 2 weeks. You know what I mean? When you get when you get a negative, go back to work. That's not the worst thing I ever heard. I heard they're like $10 or $20, these tests. 10, 20 billion is like a drop in the bucket compared to the 6 trillion they just laid out.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. But think about it from the liability perspective of an employer potentially, right? Think about, you want to bring people back to work, but you want to create a safe environment. We have no idea, and I'm not putting anything out. It's not legal advice, but we don't know yet if people are going to litigate if they felt that they were in an unsafe work environment, if they felt that they had corona and were forced to go to work by their employers, and that's public record. We know that's happened. In New York City, it's happened with the Transportation Authority and stuff like that, right? People were forced to go to work, and other people might have gotten sick from them. I don't know how you prove it, but nonetheless, you might see litigation, right, in this area. So if you own a company, you might be reluctant to bring everybody back At the same time, unless you know people that are, negative, come back and you've done testing. Testing might not be 100% accurate, but nonetheless, you've done something to the best of your ability. You documented it. We tested people. We made an investment. These people proved negative. The people that were positive, they stayed home for a couple of weeks, got retested before they came back. I think that's a more practical measure than saying, oh my God, I really want to reopen. I want that beach to reopen. I want that bar to reopen, that restaurant, the gym. I mean, this is the new normal. So there's pre-corona and
honestly,
post-corona.
who's gonna go to a crowded bar?
Not me.
Not me either. I mean, look, so far, knock on wood, I haven't felt any symptoms. I thought back in January, I had some of these symptoms where I almost didn't want to go do the show one day, and I had to talk myself into it, like stop being soft, get up and go to work. But I never feel like that. I was sweating, I was hot, and I was sweating, and then I was cold. But I went to work the next 2 days, right? And I was back in January, so maybe I had a small fit of it. But other than that, so far so good, right? Do I have to get tested before I can go back to work?
Yeah, you might be. I mean, the thing is we're not doctors, we're not scientists, right? So you can't let a scientist make an economic decision, nor a politician make a scientific decision, right? I mean, this stuff is rooted in science, right? It's like you go to the doctor, you get a physical, right? The numbers are the numbers. You get a blood test. Your cholesterol's this, your blood pressure's whatever, and then we have a benchmark or we compare it to, okay? Without that, we're just guessing. So I think everybody should be tested so we have a benchmark. We know who's infected. We know, there's other tests that could determine if you had it, if you're immune. That's great. That's great. If we could do those tests, fine. But I think whatever tests we have, we roll out. We don't need the Rolls Royce of testing right now. The basic test that we could do to determine if someone has it from someone who doesn't, fine. You separate those who have it from those who don't. Those who don't could go back to work on a scale back basis. My point is, when I thought I was sick, my mother's 82, I didn't want to go see my mother and get her sick. Don't forget, a lot of people live, particularly in New York City and other cities around the country, they live in a multi-family, multi-generational apartment. You have people that have young children and seniors in their 80s in the same apartment. So they can't even quarantine themselves. So if one person in that apartment is sick, everybody else in that apartment, from the 80-year-old grandparent to the infant, could potentially be sick. We need to take that into consideration. And how do you obviate that and mitigate that risk? You test and test and test. 3 times I always say it. Testing, testing, testing. It's like, hey, dummy, get tested. It's like a dummy test. How do you not close down the economy? You should have tested. How do you reopen the economy? You test. Without testing, it's just a guess. Here's the fear, John. Imagine if we reopen the economy on May 15th.
Yeah.
And people get tested and they're positive. And then we got to shut things down again. People would never want to go back.
We don't want that. That's for sure. So I'll just tell you this. If I couldn't see my mother right now, I'd be a dead man. Okay, I live right next door to my mother, and she's literally cooking me a meal every day. She texts me, "Do you want lunch? Do you want dinner?" So I got to walk over to my fence between us, and she hands me the food over the fence. So I'm seeing her from an appropriate social distance. But yeah, I need mom in my life right now. I need her all the time. But Manny, we're talking about all this serious stuff. It's Friday. So I'm going to try to lighten the mood a little bit for everybody who's getting sick and tired of this crap. I'm asking everyone this question today. Have you found a new go-to snack since you've been in quarantine? Because me personally, I came across these Oreo. You got the regular Oreos and then you got the double stuffs, okay? I found these, they're called the most stuff. It's like a double stuff. They're so fat, it's unbelievable. Wow. And I'm hooked now on the stuff. And I think people, everybody's all we're doing is eating and snacking and watching television. Did you come up with any new go-to snacks?
Yes, that's a great question. So I had these a while ago, and they're kind of hard to find. They're called Smart Fries. So they look like French fries, but they're like kind of potato chips almost. And they're low fat, so it's a great snack. And I'm going to give a shout out to the Gourmet Garage, which is down the street from your studio on Broadway. They have them. So I've been eating smart fries, and they're great. They're kind of like a potato chip. They look like a French fry, and they're super salty, so they're wonderful. I love them, and that's kind of like my go-to snack. Absolutely, the smart fries. I highly recommend them. Shout out to the Smart Fries Company, and Gourmet Garage has them. So
Gourmet
give them some
Garage, I
business.
got to check that one out. Will the smart fries help me in other ways, like make me a little smarter?
Maybe. I think anything that we could do that makes us think we're smarter, like we're talking about optimistic, the power of positivity. If you think you're smarter, maybe you'll be a little smarter. So if you eat the fry because it's called smart, I don't know about my smartphone. My phone I call like a dumb phone because my phone doesn't work a lot. But yes, let's be optimistic on a Friday.
The phone makes us dumber because we don't have to think things through. You just Google it now. You
don't even add. Remember, like when you'd have to like write down. I was like using my phone to like calculate some figures the other night, right? And I was like putting in the wrong numbers that are totally wrong. If I wrote them down, I wouldn't make the same mistake. Yeah. If I wrote down 125 and 50 cents, it's right there. And then but I went right into the phone and skipped that step, thinking I'm saving time. I wasted time because I kept making mistakes.
Yeah. I feel like your son is in college. I got a daughter in college. I got another one senior in high school. My boy John is in high school also. And I feel like the kids these days, they have no problem solving skills because of the phone. You know what I mean? Like you just put an issue in front of them, and if it's not like immediately in their brain, they got to go to the phone to get some help on it. Like I think it's really knocked kids' problems. Like we used to, when we were kids, you got to try to let's figure something out here. You know what I mean? And there's no more figuring. They just go to the phone.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's kind of like those exercises you do, like, you're with 10 people, and if you're on a stranded island and you have like, butter and a butter knife and a roll, and you have matches, like how do you like survive and get off the island, right? Well, if you put 10 kids on an island and you took away their phones, I think they'd be in trouble.
Oh my God, they'd all shrivel and die. Probably.
They wouldn't know what to do. And they wouldn't be able to chronicle like, hey, look, I'm on an island. Isn't this cool? Look at this picture.
They'd be doing selfies until their battery ran out. Me and you would be over there rubbing two sticks together to try to make
try to make some food, get some fish. We got to live. We got to survive. But yeah, you're absolutely right. The phone has kind of dumbed down society. No doubt. But you know what's weird too about this thing? I'll just leave you with this. It's like I want people to learn from this opportunity and to be creative. I mean, there will be jobs from this, horrible situation. Kind of like we're talking about with the test and the immunology, right? Like, if people get vaccine, there's going to be some recording of it. Maybe there's opportunities for people to come up with something. I'm not talking about, coming up with a vaccine. I'm talking about working somewhere in that ecosystem. Yeah. How can we all be useful and help and come up with a way to develop PPE with a 3D printer? That's, we could do it quicker than, waiting for something to come from China and they're not going to send it or whatever. So I really want to challenge people to, be entrepreneurs and think, what can I do and what's the world going to be like post-corona and how do I add value? Maybe that bar is not going to open up. But what can I do in the meanwhile? What else can I do?
I've been working, you're an expert in the law. I'm one of the best. Manny's our in-house consigliere. He helps me all the time personally with legal advice. And, but I tend to kind of focus in on the markets and look for opportunity there. I personally think the commercial real estate market will never recover because you got companies now, they're looking at their workforce and everybody's working from home. So you could really shine a spotlight on people and say, well, this guy worked really good from home. This girl worked really good from home. This guy, if we don't prod him, he doesn't do anything. So I think employers, number one, are going to use this opportunity to cull the herd. It's going to be so much easier for them to see who the company's carrying on their back, and they're going to cull people, right? And then with the phases of going back into work, I think employers, for like you said, liability purposes, employers are going to start by saying, okay, look, half the people go in Monday, Wednesday, Friday, half the people go in Tuesday, Thursday, and if you did 2 days this week, then you do 3 days next week, and they're going to alternate them, right? And as they get closer to the end of their leases here in New York City and in Boston and all the metropolitan areas, they're gonna, I think personally, everyone is gonna re-examine their commercial real estate footprint and adopt more teleworking and have less overhead from a real estate standpoint. And I think commercial real estate, REITs, companies that rely on big rent rolls, private equity groups that have bought properties based on the rent rolls, I think all of those things are in for a major collapse over the next 5 years. So I've been talking to people about, identifying companies that have exposure to public markets so we can short them, because I think they're literally going to be crushed after this.
No, I agree. I mean, look at a WeWorks model, right? I mean, I don't even feel comfortable going out in the street. I'm going to feel comfortable booking a conference room at, say, 1 o'clock, if after you were in it, no offense to you, and then just like not have that room wiped down. We're not going to want to be in a co-working space. So the whole model is done. But you're absolutely right. We realized, again, the benefit, if there's any benefits from this, is that we can be productive working from home. And think about your work from home. There's less pollution, and this is statistically proven. New York is cleaner, Los Angeles is cleaner, San Francisco is cleaner, the world is cleaner, right, in terms of the air quality, because there's less pollution. We haven't seen air quality like this, I don't know how many years, because people aren't driving, okay? You're not spending money on coffee or lunch. So, I mean, it hurts the economy, but also you're personally saving. And most importantly, I haven't really heard of major productivity declines. I always say, I'm a fan of old TV, and like I Love Lucy, there was like the manager, the line of sight manager, the manager in a corner in a glass office, and he was looking at the employees. And if you weren't typing or you were chatting to your neighbor there at work, he would say, you're not typing fast enough. That's called line of sight management. That's old school thinking. We have to go into work and people see you there and what you're doing. People should be able to determination, like you said, based on your performance, based upon the metrics of what you're doing. If you're productive, you can work anywhere. You don't have to work 2 feet away from me so I could see you. That's 1950s. Come up with technology to make sure you could track people's productivity. And I agree. I think the real estate market, unfortunately, is going to be in trouble. I think the banks are going to be in trouble because people aren't going to pay their rent, right? Because they got a forbearance on foreclosures. Then people aren't going to pay their mortgage. And ultimately, the backstop is the banks. So the banks who underwrote these mortgages, unfortunately, they're going to experience some tough times. I know Bank of America has and Chase has already. So I think you're going to see a lot of ripples. But the good thing, like you said, is how do we have a new workplace where, beyond Zoom or Skype, how can people interact with each other to make it more interactive? Maybe people go back to the office 1 or 2 days a week. But you save the rents. I mean, think about a bank. Think about Chase, how many branches they have, how many offices they have. Or look at Starbucks, right? Maybe you just go to a kiosk and pick up your coffee. You don't need all this real estate. So they're going to shrink down their real estate holdings, which, at the end of the day is beneficial, I think. I mean, it hurts real estate. But the point is do we need office space like that to work with each other? Do we need big swanky offices if you're a law firm where you can work remotely? I mean, what's the point of it? You're adding costs on to your services that your customers are paying for. So maybe services could be cheaper, costs could be cheaper if you take out an element, the cost of overhead and real estate. Now, that's detrimental for the real estate market, and that's unfortunate. But they'll have to figure out how to reinvent themselves. Again, I don't know the point of like going to a mall. People go to malls and they go shopping or they go to Cheesecake Factory. Fine. But if the mall doesn't exist, it sucks for the people who work there and the real estate holders of that mall and owners. But at the end of the day, we got to figure out how we could get to, post-corona economy and the post-corona world. And it might not be going to malls.
Yeah, no, that's another thing. I had Pavlina Osta on yesterday. We were talking about damage to retailers. And, some retailers are struggling, hoping for a reopen. I think, major mall owners across the country, like indoor malls, I think they're dead too. Because it's the same thing like you said. Who wants to go to the mall right now? You're better off just ordering stuff online and getting it delivered to your house and wipe it down and leave the box outside. Nobody wants to go walk around the mall. It's like a big petri dish.
Oh, yeah. It's like, to me, it's all about stuff, right? You want stuff. How do you get the stuff? If you get what you want, but you could order it on Zappos, order it on Amazon or whatever, and they have a good return policy, even shoes or whatever, clothes that you think, you'd have to try on, but you're comfortable buying things, your size or whatever, and there's technological ways to overcome that. what's the big deal? At the end of the day, you have what you need, and life goes on. It just you didn't get it in the way that you used to get it. And again, as I get older and as I study these things, a lot of things that we do are not based on like any scientific proof. It's just kind of the way we did stuff, and nobody ever challenged the status quo because it kind of worked because we thought it worked. So a lot of the patterns of practice of behavior were just kind of the way we lived our lives. Like, why did we go to a mall to buy stuff? We used to have stores on streets that we would go to, and somebody decided, hey, in a more rural part of America, we don't have streets and developed cities, so you go to a mall. But, again, just because we did something and been doing it for years doesn't mean it was right or the only way to do it. We'll keep doing stuff, but we just have to reinvent or figure out how we do stuff in a different way. And I'm struggling with that myself. Like, oh, well, I don't live my life the way I live my life, and I'm never gonna. And that it's a problem. But at the end of the day, it's not insurmountable. It's solvable. But we got to use our entrepreneurship or ingenuity to kind of figure out, okay, how do we get through? How do we reemploy, let's say, people who worked in a mall? How do we get them a job? Because maybe those mall jobs don't come back. That's the issue. That's where I want the leaders to step up, right? That's where the leadership, the politicians, the economists, they need to step up and provide a plan, not just to reopen the economy, but to reemploy people. Say a restaurant, right? Say a restaurant's on Upper West Side. They have 200 seating capacity, 200 people. And they need 200 people in there because they have crazy high rents and expenses. Now, because of social distancing, they have 50. At one time, we're only going to have 50 people in there. Maybe they won't be able to reopen. Maybe 50 people are not enough to cover their expenses, John.
No, I'm with you on that. And you know what? I think we're going to see the shock waves of this for years to come. You know what I'm saying? It's not like, oh, we're reopened, let's get back to action. I don't know who's going to go to a concert. I'm not. You know what I mean?
Broadway shows.
I'm not going to go to. Who's going to go to a football game or a baseball game and sit crammed in a seat like this with people yelling and screaming and spitting all over you? Not me. And I love me some sports. I love me some concerts. But I think there's big things that are not going to recover for a while because of all the fear they put into us. Manny, I got to wrap it up. I want to ask you one thing. I thought I heard you say earlier that you went to MIT when you were 51. I have like visions of like Rodney Dangerfield in my head, like back to school. Like you actually went back to school at 51?
I'm 51 now, but I went to MIT when I was like in my late 40s, and I did an executive MBA program. I did like a weekend type program. But yeah, it was like back to school, and I love that movie. And my favorite part of the movie is when he's cramming for his test and he's drinking coffee. And instead of just drinking the coffee, he just opens up like the Maxwell House instant coffee, and he sticks a spoon in there, and he just starts eating the coffee granules. It's one of my favorite scenes in the movie. I watch it over and over again.
I mean, can you do the triple Lindy? That's the real question.
Now you're stretching it. We all have our limitations. I can't do that. But I also went to the Mets game. Just a little historical fact about me. When that movie came out, he threw out the first pitch of the Mets game, and they gave out like his head on a stick kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I went and I got it, and everybody was going ballistic because I love Rodney Dangerfield, and I have all the old albums with Dr. Vinny Bubatz. I know you talk about Dr. Vinny Bubatz.
I got like my comedic idols are like Jackie Gleason, Johnny Carson, Rodney Dangerfield, Don Rickles. Like those guys, when I watch them, I could just watch. I watch sometimes just to get, like body language and delivery techniques.
Brilliant.
I watched the Dean Martin roasts, and they have all these, Richard Pryor and Red Fox and all these like legendary comics up there. And the way they do it is like stands the test of time as far as I'm concerned.
It's masterful. And I'll leave you with this. One of my favorite Roddy jokes is when he said when he was born, he was so ugly that not only did the doctor slap him, but the doctor slapped his mom in the face.
Wow. What about I like the Rodney joke where he said the Vinny Bubatz, and he says, "Oh, my doctor, I tell you, my doctor Vinny Bubatz, this guy, he's a nut job. I go in there for a checkup. He puts his hand on my knee, hits me in the balls with a hammer.
It's classic, and the delivery, absolutely right. It's like pre-social media, you know, the world was different, and the delivery of these people. I mean, like I watched the old Sanford and Son, like Red Fox. All the people on Sanford and Son were part of his comedy group that he would tour with. I mean, he's a major comedian in the '60s, and his stuff is brilliant, brilliant, well ahead of his time. You know, but yeah, you know, Don Rickles as well. You know, Dean Martin, genius, Bob Hope, you know, legendary stuff that I think, you know, maybe during Corona too, people could go back and look at some of the, you know, the masters and look at, you know, how like Sebastian Maniscalco, like what he bases his stuff on, or even Dave Chappelle. Clearly, you know, Pryor was fantastic. Eddie Murphy really looked up to Pryor as well. So yeah,
Oh
great
yeah, no,
talking with you,
Richard
John.
Pryor was a killer. He was definitely an OG of the
Oh my
comedy
God.
world. All right, so here's what we learned today, folks. Manny Alicandro, top attorney in New York, ran for New York City Public Advocate. He doesn't care about our civil liberties. He wants everybody to go back to work, everybody to get vaccinated, everybody to carry around some proof on their phone, but with all logical things. He went to MIT in his 40s, and his new snack are smart fries from the Gourmet Garage. We had a pretty good round. We had a pretty good bout here. How's the missus doing with the vegan snacks company?
She's good. She's good. Thanks. Yeah, it's a little slow right now because you know, we can't get into the kitchen and stuff. But you know, hopefully when things reopen, you know, people will be looking for some healthy snack alternatives. So I'll give her a plug. Simply Mary's, simplymarys.com, and she has healthy snacks, and she has cookie dough made from chickpeas. So all plant based products, and she predominantly it's cookie dough made from chickpeas. So look her up, simplymarys.com.
All right, so you got to go check out Simply Mary's because Manny brought some down to the studio. It was gone in seconds. And I long for the day when we go back to the studio again, Manny. You know?
Me too.
And Manny
Me
lives
too.
in the neighborhood. He just pop by every so often, have a drink. The good old days when we could
I know.
fraternize.
It seemed like it was such a long time ago, but I hope and pray that we'll get back there. But like I said, get a shot, put it on your phone. Maybe we're back in business.
Yeah, let's hope. Manny, thanks a lot, bro. Appreciate you
Thanks.
checking in with us today. You the
All
man.
right. All right. Have a great day. See ya.